I joined IBM over 25 years ago, and I tell everybody I'm not going to stop counting now. I did a good job up until 25. I joined IBM in Stockholm in November, and I couldn't have imagined at the time what kind of journey that I would have with IBM, or that we as a company would go through for the past over 25 years. I started as a financial analyst, so I joined IBM Finance and grew up there, had the opportunity to move through Paris for the European headquarters, into New York for the corporate headquarters in various finance roles. And I don't know if you know, but IBM, we almost went bankrupt early 90s. And that was because one key reason was that we, the finance group, we did not provide the information that the company needed to make the right decisions. For example, there was no single source of the truth. Everybody had their own number. Every business unit made the numbers except our CEO, right? So we had to really relaunch what we did within the finance. And when I joined, I was in Sweden. We had our own cash, we had our own treasury, we had our own components of everything. And 10 years later, it was all centralized, one process owner, one way of doing things. And I was the balance sheet and accounting manager back in 1997 or 96, where we finally moved to one standard chart of account. And there was a lot of work to get that done. But we had a mission, we needed to do that. Then when I left the balance sheet job, we just moved fixed asset accounting to Germany. And we said, how is that even going to be possible? Our old Swedish ladies, sorry, they had been in the job for a while. They didn't speak a word German, and the Germans surely didn't speak a word Swedish. So that was the beginning of our journey at IBM Finance to really get to a better, more efficient organization. And throughout those years, a lot has also happened in the technology. For example, it's a little frightening, I'd say, maybe not, but you have companies like Uber, Spotify, Airbnb, etc., that didn't exist maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, and now they're part of everybody's life, right? And why? It's easy to use, it's using the technology, and it's making me, the consumer, closer to the action. All these middle hands are being removed. So I'm going to talk to you about, this is a fancy title, but I'm going to talk today about how do we bring cognitive into finance. And the sad part is that when I'm done, you're going to say, okay, I knew that. So there's no magic pixie dust or anything that I'm going to share with you that you don't already know. But I'd like to take you through a couple of points, 4 topics actually, that hopefully makes you more confident in selecting your journey for your companies where you want to go. So as was told here, I'm the overall client. So 5 years ago, I was the CFO for our BPO business within IBM. And I got the opportunity to move out of that comfort zone role in finance and become the leader for our delivery organization for the work we do for clients in BPO for finance and procurement. And 2 years ago, I expanded that to include also HR and mortgage service we have in the US and a little bit of managed marketing. And what is interesting is it's all about that transformation. So the thought when I moved out of finance to move into this delivery role was to bring our experience, or my personal experience, but our IBM experience into the dialogues with our clients and future clients to see how can we help fit the transformation journey for your company with the rate and pace that you are looking to do. So I'm going to talk about 4 things today. I'm going to start to give some examples of how far we have gone within IBM, that we're actually using cognitive in a couple of different areas within IBM Finance. I'm going to focus in a little bit around M&A, our merger and acquisition role. Number 2, we do every other year what we call CXO study, CEOs and CFO and CHRO and you name it. And the results, and there are copies out here, the results are quite amazing when you're able to compare CFOs, focus on that, those that lead companies that have substantially better, 50% better revenue growth, 50% better absolute profitability, what do they do? And the data is here, and it's very, very interesting. And they are analytics, they're looking for predictive, they're ahead of the game, and they're partnering as a business partner with the CEOs, not just reporting the numbers and saying no to everything that comes on the table. The third one is, we mentioned a little bit yesterday, which is really exciting. As we change to this new world, I mentioned Uber, Airbnb, etc., it's also all about the user experience. I'm going to talk to that in the frame of design thinking. And user experience, not only for me as a client to a company, but within finance. You're all more or less in the GBS world or in the finance world, where there are stakeholders that depend on your process and the output of your process. So how can we bring better client experience into, with the technology's help, into the operations, so we actually have people in the companies who want to follow the process, not because they have to, but because it's easy and it's compliant. And the fourth aspect is really simple. I have 5 steps to cognitive. And like I said, when you see them, it's going to be pretty straightforward. But I think it makes sense based on the conversation we had up until that point, why those are the steps and why they're critical. So here we go. So within IBM, we are really using cognitive. And about 15 years ago, I was the controller for our software business unit. And within IBM, merger and acquisitions and divestitures has always been a big part of the strategy, to acquire capabilities that we haven't built ourselves and make sure that we transform with the rate and pace we needed so we remain relevant to our clients. Software has been an obvious part of that. Most of our assets has done in our software business. And when I was a controller early 2000, we did a very good job at the time, because we had done 10 years of finance transformation at the time. We were pretty standard, one global chart of account. All the countries did the processes, the back office process, similarly, treasury, cash, pricing, etc. So when it was time to integrate the acquisitions into IBM, it would take us about a year. And everybody who's done M&A, and I think all of you have done that, you know that the key part of being successful on the financial side is to get the return on investment faster, which is eliminate all that duplicative infrastructure that exists in the company you buy. So you really get the revenue growth with as low cost associated with it as possible, which allows you to make more and faster churn on the M&A. 10 years later, same size company, instead of the year to integrate, took 6 months. Because we had at the time, when I was there early 2000, that's as good as it gets, but because we continue to drive and transform our finance operation to be more standard, more globalized, and cut out a lot of the inefficiencies, it's now a faster integration, which is great. But what's really exciting now, from my perspective, is that we're now using predictive and cognitive, and I'll throw out the Watson word. It's going to come one. I hope you don't count how many times I'm going to say Watson here. But we're very proud of Watson, which is a great computer capabilities around cognitive, to help us, IBM, to make better decisions as to what to buy. So for example, what I do today, they say, okay, we have these gaps or these capabilities that we're looking for to acquire or would like to pursue. They can throw those attributes into Watson and process in a split second and come out. Here are companies that would look good for you to consider based on our history of what we have bought, what has been successful, and again, the capabilities of those companies. And another one is that when we are looking to, we have identified a gap or capability we'd like to acquire and look at the company, again, because we've loaded Watson with all the history of all these hundreds or so of acquisitions we've done, we can do a faster job in assessing whether this company could be a good fit or not. So we're reducing the effort, improving the accuracy, and enabling the finance is helping IBM to achieve its business objectives, which is in this case through M&A and acquisition, or divestiture for the matter. And of course, it started with a workflow, right? You've got to keep track of everything, and I'm going to come back to that later. You've got to have that source of data that you can rely on. That's accurate, reliable, and with enough quantity on the data, you can draw conclusions. Another one up here is around forecasting or expense forecasting. So I don't know how you do in your companies, but IBM, everybody have an expense budget, and what's your forecast for the quarter or for the year, and everybody's giving you a number, and you add it up, and when it's expense, you end up with a number that's way too big. When you ask for the revenue forecast, you end up with a number that's not big enough. I'm sure you all can relate to that. So we have now a statistical model. It's not really Watson, but it's based on data, statistical model that is doing the forecasting on the expense every quarter with an accuracy within 2%. Right? And you get rid of all that BS, right, that people want to communicate, and you get it faster, more efficient, and the people that we have in the finance organization can spend their time on looking ahead rather than making up numbers based on each individual's personal preference at the end of the day. So we're very proud of the IBM Finance journey, and I hope I set the stage here, and that we were really nowhere 20 years ago. We almost went bankrupt, and with a change and a dramatic focus on globalization and standardization and common processes and quite a heavy mandate from the corporation, we are now at the position where we're starting to ourselves be able to use the technologies that is out there to help IBM be a better company and be more out there. Maybe I should hold on to this one. That was topic one. So we're using it at IBM. We're just beginning. This is not something that's easy. We've got to have a lot of data, etc. But we are really using it within IBM. Second topic is a CFO study. So every other year or so, we do a study, interviews, and Mei Lin here has done a lot of them herself here in the Netherlands. We interviewed over 5,000 CXOs, right, in the world. 640 or so CFOs. And we've, like I said, we've done this for every other year for quite a number of years, so we can start to look at the trends, etc. And what's interesting on the CFO side, and it's 21 industry over, I think, 70 countries, so it's quite a broad range of CFOs. And what you can see here is that, working through all the data points, all the answers from these interviews, suggests that there's about 19% of the CFOs that we called value integrators. They have figured out something that's making them more efficient. And like I said before, the most interesting part of that and why I think it's super relevant is that their revenue growth and the profit is higher, 50% higher than the rest of the group. So, and that's really the foundation for identifying who are the better CFOs. And what they have is they have standard processes, they have one chart of account, they have process ownership, they have policies, they use a shared services mechanism for delivering the services within finance. So very interesting. Now, in the last year's survey, or the one that I have here, we also identify then what we call performance accelerators. So another, the 4% of the total, so 20% of that group of value integrators did something more. And they spend more time around predictive analytics, analyzing the data and using that when they make decisions going forward. So here is on the value integrators and performance accelerators as well. You can see the blue is what the performance accelerators are doing, and the gray is what everybody else is doing, right? So you can see that for example, integrating financial planning with strategic and operational planning, everybody does that of the performance accelerators, only 54% in the rest of the CFOs. Optimize planning and measure and monitor business performance. This one I think is even more interesting. This is more about looking ahead, right? So again, the performance accelerators would almost, let's say 85% there in the first circle, say I use predictive analytics to figure out what's the new products and services that we're going to go for in this company. And you can see only 25% of the CFOs in the other companies said we're using predictive analytics. Not because they don't want to, but because they don't have the capabilities yet. M&A that I just talked about, and also pricing and promotion activities. So I think both IBM as an example and looking at what the results that we get out of the CFO study is that the CFOs are moving much, much faster and are more successful towards using data, being analytical, and partnering with the business leader to help make the right decisions for the company. Now, all of this finance transformation is a journey. Like I said, when I moved from finance into this role 5 years ago, I thought, okay, that's as good as it gets. We can't drive more efficiency out of this, and yet we still keep driving the mission. And again, with new technologies, it's possible to continue to drive improvements. And not just looking for efficiency. The key point here so far has been the capabilities, right? The analytical capabilities of your team that matters at the end of the day. So now it's all about user experience. So I'm going to ask you to do just a little exercise with me. It's going to be real fast. Everybody take a pen and paper. And I'm going to ask you to draw a vase. Can you all draw a vase for me? 20 seconds. Draw a vase. Very nice. All right, show some vase. 20 seconds is up. This is a quick exercise. All right, there's a vase over there. Very nice. Very nice. They look very similar. Very interesting. Now you get, perfect. Now you get 30 seconds. And now you're going to draw a picture that allows people to enjoy flowers in their homes. Okay? Draw a picture that allows people to enjoy flowers in their homes. I'll give you 30 seconds for that. You done, Willem? All right. What did you draw? Same. Same? All right. So what did you draw? Similar, okay. Can you explain what you have there?
It's a flower delivery service that just, every week.
That's nice. Yeah. And on the iPad over here?
Just a table with a small glass and flowers.
Very nice. Julie?
Just put the flowers in.
Perfect. The simple exercise is very simple, but when you all ask to draw a vase, everybody is very close to it. When we do the other exercise, often there will be like, you have some air coming, you put a little fan so the air is moving the smell of the flowers into the room, or you have an iPad with pictures kind of going through. So my point is, when you focus on the experience, which is how do people enjoy flowers in their home, you get more out-of-the-box ideas than let's draw a vase. Right? And that's what this user experience is all about. We're so focused on getting out a product, getting out a service, but the key point is, what's the experience we want the people, the users of this service, to have? It's a very, very collaborative way of working, and you get a lot of other benefits. For example, when you use IBM design thinking, it's you get accountability, you get buy-in on the ideas that you're working through to go execute on. And you get a project plan that's very easy to then divide. And you create hills. You have an agile approach. It's not the project for the next 18 months. Okay, what do we do the next 30 days? 60 days, 90 days. Then you have a checkpoint, and you test quick. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, you stop, you adjust, and you move on. So very, very, very powerful. And the part of that, what I really enjoy too, is the ideation. So everybody knows how things are working today, but the key is, what do we need to do different to have a better experience and a better service to our stakeholders? And the key point is of course, to identify how does it work today? How does, me as a user, what do I do, feel, think, and say? Right? And is that aligned with what we want the person to do, feel, think, and say? And what is the process today? Inefficiencies, I get mad because I get the purchase order and they haven't filled out the things. I have to call someone, he's not there, it doesn't work. Versus this is how it should flow. And of course, in that how it should flow scenario, it's a lot about the workflow itself, that things are moving along nicely in the process without having all these exceptions that we also talked about yesterday. So a key part here is to have ideas coming out of the team. And I learned that if you have a group of people like we are here, and let's say we would have some brainstorming ideas about how we can improve the account payable process, without any notification, we'll get a pretty good set of ideas, because we all have this experience. If you then turn this and say, okay, which we do in design thinking, say, okay, let's come up with some absurd ideas, like some crazy ideas, just to test our ability to think out of the box. You will do that. And it's proven statistically that once you have a session of thinking crazy ideas, the ideas session that's coming out after that is of better quality than what you did when you're starting off. So I'm going to use an example. I don't know if anyone have heard the bear story, bear as a bear story, but this is actually a true story. So there's a company, it's in Canada, power company, who has a big problem. So when it snows and rains in the winter, and if it freezes after that, there's a risk that all the wires that the power is transporting the electricity, that they break because the ice gets so heavy, or the trees will fall over, etc. And it costs a lot of money for the companies. They have to send out people in the middle of the night. We are unhappy because we don't have electricity, it's cold, etc. So it's a big problem. So they had a design thinking session and said, how do we fix that problem? And they said, okay, let's get into the absurd idea notion here. So someone said, okay, let's do this. Let's get all the bears in the forest to go shake the post. After it rains and snows, you get all the bears to go shake the post, right? Right? Okay. And someone said, all right, I agree, that's an absurd idea. But how do we get the bears to shake the post? Any ideas? Yeah, you put honey, right? You can put some honey on top of the post. That would be a good idea. All right. So how do we get the honey on top of the post? Sorry? Bees. Good. A little cold in the middle of the night, but it's a good idea. Well, maybe we can, fly something over and drop honey on the post. And there was the great idea. Instead of flying over and dropping honey, after it rained and snowed, you have a chopper, right? And the chopper flies over the power line close enough, so you will just the wires of the air from the chopper will just move the wires, and they will not have that problem. Because the key is to get the snow and the rain off the wires because it freezes again, right? So I like that example because to me, at least, it became very real around the power of imagination and allowing ourselves to think about, crazy or absurd ideas, which actually get us to the better ideas. And one idea feed another idea, which might be 3 or 4 ideas later that say, hey, that might actually work for us. We might want to do that. So important, and I see that a lot when we partner with our clients, it's really also the stakeholders, the vendors in account payable, the clients, of course, in the order to cash, in RTR, the overall finance, and other people who use the finance processes. Super important now to focus in on user experience, and the technology can help us make it much better, much easier. And I'm going to use another example here. Last year, we had a design thinking workshop with a client, and it was in the account payable or procurement processes. And I'm sure you have as well. Most every company has a problem around compliance in procurement. You have, maverick buying, they don't follow the process, you buy stuff, you don't get all the discounts, you're losing, you're giving money on the table because people are buying the stuff where you don't have negotiated the right cost points with those companies. So we said, why? It should be like an Uber experience, 3 clicks and you should be compliant. So we were able to pull in Watson capabilities to scatter all the policies and all the catalogs, et cetera, that the company has. So a person who needs something, maybe there's an email triggering it, maybe go to what we call it Watson Buying Assistant. You go with an app on your phone, and you click and say, I need this and this. And then Watson will go in quickly and say, okay, here are 5 or 2 or 6 options. Are you looking for this, this, or that? And you will say, I'm looking for this kind of power, or this machine, this size of the machine, or this location, and of course, when it needs to be delivered. And then Watson's, okay, I have exactly what you need. Can we deliver this date? Is that what you're looking for? Yes, right? The acquisition goes in, the purchase order goes in, the thing is ordered, the thing shows up on time, I'm happy, company's happy because I'm buying from the catalog, it's easy. And the best part from us in finance is that IRGR is done automatically, right? You just click, I got it, it's fun, and then you go out and automatically you will pay the invoice on time, right? So that's, again, that's when you're combining what you have here in terms of what's the user experience we want to create to get people to actually want to follow the process, the standard process, and be compliant, don't leave money on the table, and drive more profit for the company. So I hope you figure I really like design thinking. All right, last topic. So 5 things to make you cognitive. And this is where I said, you're going to see this. Yes, of course, I knew that. So I say, okay. Number 1, and it's coming back super, super duper important, data quality and data governance. It cannot be a shortcut there any longer. 2 years ago, we had a client conference in the US, and we were talking about this, and they said, you know what? It's impossible to get that investment in the data master improvements to be prioritized in the company. Because if I have another dollar to spend, the CEO would rather want to spend it on marketing or sales, right? They don't want to spend it in the back office. But with technology and the promise of technology, we got to have the foundation of the quality data to work with. So that's really number one. Number two, you then need to have standard policies so you can draw bigger conclusions across the board. It's not, there will also always be exceptions by country, but it should be exceptions statutory, etc. Not because that's how we always did it or that's how we like to do it. There's one way of doing it and similar policies across the whole corporation. Third is where we all are, a shared services organization. And that links also back to the CFO study, right? Where the CFOs that have the most efficient operations, they are in a shared services organization. They might have captive or outsourced only, or a hybrid of the two. But there is a model around providing the services that is not that I have my own finance person sitting next door like we did 20 years ago. It is a GBS model. Number four here is when it starts to get exciting now, right? So more automation, and there's a lot of talk about that the last day. And that's also is a journey. You're going to start with desktop automation, then you get into RPA or robots more, then you get into more predictive analytics and automation as well. But that is an important part of the journey to get to the end goal, which is that predictive analytics, which is how we're able to use it in the M&A process within IBM. And I think what I've seen so far is a lot of people start at 3. They set up a shared services organization and they think, all right, but if you don't move left, if you don't have the standard processes and standard policies, and you don't have the data that supports that in terms of data quality, you can't really move on the right side of the chart, which is where you want to get. So I really do believe what I see in our conversations with our clients is there is now an urgent or more realistic view of that we do need to spend the money around data governance and data quality to create that foundation for us to make the decision. And like, again, the IBM M&A example is such that you have really good core data, and then you can harness or review that and leverage that into your business. So with that, just a few examples for clients that we're working with, but like I said, so we're using cognitive within IBM. The CFO study, please take a copy, it's on the table out there. Or also, you can go in, if you go into IBM.com, there's a test you can take, you can download it for free, just to see how your company compares to the CFOs. It's about user experience, using design thinking, thinking up new ways of doing things to help get people want to follow the process versus forcing people to follow the process. And then you got to get these foundation around data governance, the policies, the shared services, almost everybody has. We've got to go back in the process if you don't have it yet, so you can move up to the predictive and cognitive analytics, which when we as a finance team can provide more predictive information to our CEO or the leaders of the company, that's when we can help be strategic partner and help make the company be successful versus being the bottleneck and say, I can't do that, or have to pay boatload of money once you acquire a company because you don't know how to integrate it into your own company, and you're duplicating effort, which is not affordable in the long run.